Well, welcome back to In Good Company. I am so excited for our guest that we have today. Longtime friend, went to college together. It's going to be an incredible, incredible episode. And listen, the whole premise of this podcast is we believe that the best parts of business happen in good company. So without further ado, I'm in good company today in the dungeon, the podcast studio, the space. Welcome, Zach Mills.
Hey, Mike, how are you doing, bud?
Doing awesome, bro. I'm just happy that we're able to chill. I mean, we can pretend like these mics aren't here because we were talking before you got on. It's like we have probably 30, 40-minute conversations, kids screaming in the background, and we just don't miss a beat.
Such is life.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, for those that don't know you, just give us a little bit about your story. Where'd you grow up? Where do you live?
Yeah.
What do you do? All that stuff.
So I am a homegrown kid from Rochester, New York. Graduated from Brockport High School, moved out to the east side of Rochester. I would say always kind of thought that I would move eventually, and dental school was the opportunity to do just that. But prior to going to dental school, I went to St. John Fisher College. That's where...
University, thank you.
University. Wow, yeah, things have changed a lot. That's right. St. John Fisher University. That's where I actually met my now wife. Her and I, we went on a 5-year long distance relationship stint where I went off to Pittsburgh to pursue dentistry, and she went to Philadelphia to pursue optometry. And then I always knew that I wanted to come back to Rochester where my family was, and she really liked the area too. So we settled back in, and when I came back into town, I had gotten into the residency, my top residency choice at University of Rochester, Eastman Institute of Oral Health. And then I did 2 years of an associateship, and then Ashley and I, we took the leap and we opened up our own practice called The Dentist for Kids 5 years ago this August, and it's just been a wild ride ever since. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
So you are a pediatric dentist.
Yeah.
Can you just give the camera a quick smile real quick? Because I think it's important. Wow. Look at those teeth. Pearly whites.
I try my best.
Now, are you like a floss every day, twice a day? Like what's the flossing regimen?
Yeah, I've been feeling convicted lately, honestly.
Wow.
Just because, it's something that I feel like I could be, practicing just as much as I'm preaching. I'm more of a, once a day kind of guy, but now it's become after every meal. I'm into it at this point.
Wow.
I got those little flossers in my car. I got ones that I really like. So yeah, I try to floss as much as I can. Whenever the food gets stuck, I go after it.
So I don't know if anyone can relate with this, but for me, my dentist experience, I saw a chart online the other day that's like, my flossing increases exponentially when it's time for my cleaning.
Yep.
And then I have 5 straight days of floss in the morning, floss at night, and then I get my cleaning, and they're like, "Wow, you do a great job flossing." And I'm like, "Thank you." I know how to beat the system at this point. So.
And then you turn it off as soon as the appointment's over.
Yeah,
maybe you ride it a little bit.
Yeah,
longer.
I'm riding high. I'm feeling good.
But then life. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
There's always an excuse not to floss. But.
Yeah, well, and also like when I go, I'm a big late night snacker.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a thing for you, but you finally get the kids to bed, and I'm just like, man, you know what would really go great with this Netflix show?
Like a bowl of cereal.
Yeah, or like gummies.
Or gummies.
Or, I don't mean like weird gummies.
Yeah.
Just, whatever.
No.
So I got a sweet tooth. I got a problem.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I'll have like 2 fudge bars a night if Ashley brings the...
Per night?
Well, they're the healthier option.
Oh, sure.
Maybe like 100 calories.
If they're healthier, why not have 2?
Yeah, why not have 2? Exactly. So that's how I feel about it.
I love it.
No, but as long as you get into the bathroom afterwards and brush your teeth, you're good.
Okay.
Drink some water.
Well, you heard it
Don't
here
feel
first.
guilty
Dr.
about it.
Zach is a snacker, and that's important.
Yeah.
So why kids? Why pediatric dentistry? What's a little bit of that story? Because again, I think a lot of people's experience, mine included, I grew up, my dad was a candy salesman for M&M Mars.
Oh, no way.
So growing up, we literally had hundreds of king-size Starbursts, Skittles, Snickers bars, M&Ms, you name it. My dad got so much candy that we would throw out a bunch, and people would steal out of our trash can a bunch of candy. We were the most popular house on Halloween, obviously. So I had all sorts of candy and all sorts of cavities as a kid. So for me, I just remember every single time as a kid going to the dentist, hated it. And it's like, oh my gosh, when they're going to find another cavity. Now I got to come back for a filling, and I hate how I feel and all that stuff. What got you into pediatric dentistry?
Yeah, so it was actually a pretty traumatic experience that has kind of turned out to be for the better. I always enjoyed going to the dentist. I also had bad snacking habits when I was young, but maybe I just have good genetics and or hard enamel. I don't remember having like any traumatic experience at the dental office, but so I always enjoyed going to the dentist. But when I was, I think around the age of 14 years old, I fractured I fractured two of my front teeth playing baseball. I hit myself in the face with a bat. I was visiting my dad down in Florida at the time, so it was going to be 2 weeks until I could get my teeth fixed because I didn't want to just go to any dentist. And I just remember feeling super insecure that, during that whole time. And when I finally came back to New York and I got into my dentist chair, and he probably spent 2 hours fixing my front teeth, but it was one of those things that instantly restored my confidence when I looked in the mirror. And I just thought, to go from such a low point, feeling like, man, this is my smile, these are my front teeth, I'm always going to be self-conscious about things moving forward, to, looking in the mirror and being like, what an incredible result. So I think it had such an impact on me where it just changed the trajectory of what I thought I was going to do for a living. I didn't really have any sort of direction before that, but that was like, all right, this was the catalyst that was going to move me in that direction. And honestly, working with kids was something that just kind of came natural. While I was at St. John Fisher College, I started working at the childcare center across the street, just to make a little bit of side money. And then my sister, she was a nanny. So I was like, well, I could be a nanny if I have this childcare experience. So I became a manny for a family in Pittsford. And I was just like, this is easy and fun. And I just felt like I could connect with kids pretty effortlessly. So when I was in dental school, I identified pretty quickly that I didn't want to be a general dentist because it's just so broad, and you really have to stay up on all of your continuing education just across the board in order to be able to compete in the technology and all the materials and products. And it can be pretty overwhelming. And I'm one of those people that I just want to be great at a small amount of things, not good at a whole bunch of things, but great. And I knew that I wanted to specialize in just, working with kids was kind of that natural fit. So that's kind of how it took off.
And again, I've got a 4-year-old son. He's going to be 5 here in January. And I'm embarrassed to say this, his first probably 3.5 years of life, he had a pacifier. His teeth were starting to do that flare out thing. Brushing his teeth has been a journey, to say the least, because every single night you're trying to convince him that this is fun. We want to do this. What would you say for maybe some parents listening, some new parents specifically, that are like, I'm reading all the textbooks, I'm trying to figure this thing out, but I just can't get my son to brush his teeth, or I just don't know how to get rid of this pacifier. What advice might you have for someone that's kind of going through something like that?
Well, Mike, I can totally relate to what you're going through because I'm at the beginning stages of that. We have a 1-year-old son, and night 2, he had a pacifier. I promised myself he wasn't going to, but that was really the only way to get him to soothe himself and to be able to fall back asleep. So now when he goes to bed, he's got 5 pacifiers surrounding his head. And it's going to be
a crown of passies.
He's got a crown of passies, and it's going to be a journey trying to wean him off of that. And I feel like I'm being super meticulous, but I'm looking at his smile, and I can already start to see that they're jetting out a little bit more. So how am I going to navigate that? I guess just one day at a time. Brushing his teeth is difficult. It's so challenging. I mean, I look to my peers and my colleagues for advice, right? Because I can give textbook answers, but as I'm going through it at home with my with my 1-year-old, and I'm trying to sit on his arms, and he still figures out how to, Houdini out of the situation. Now my wife and I, we have more of like a tactical approach, where she's like really holding his arms down, and I'm just kind of singing a song, and she's singing along with me. Because I mean, for us, brushing with Callum, we've realized, all right, there's things that he hates, like getting his diaper changed, not a huge fan of. Just wants to roll out of that situation. Brushing his teeth, doesn't like, certain foods doesn't like. Well, we try to, kind of change his mindset in those situations by distracting him with things that he does like. There's certain songs that we sing where he just seems to just calm right down. So I guess stacking the deck in his favor, especially when you're going into a situation where you know that he's not a fan of it, but it's like, oh, well, how can we make it a positive experience? So that's what we're starting to do. It's great. It's actually working pretty well. So to anyone with kids out there, just know that you're not alone. I think a lot of parents just go through, it's natural. But I think instead of getting defeated by it, try to win in those situations, but do it in a fun way, where you're not like coercing your child into something that they hate, but you're kind of changing their mind about something because you're really flipping the script and making the whole experience a little bit more positive. So whether it's singing a song or, I mean, with digital technology, it's so easy to hold a phone over their head. Not that we want to become reliant on that stuff, but hey, when it works, it works. Yeah. And if you can get in there and get the job done, then, once they've equated things with being more of a positive experience, you're just going to see that the whole experience just transitions into something so easy. Yeah. So I think that's the goal, but you have to be willing to kind of get to that point.
Dude, let me know about haircuts too when it comes to that, because my wife is a hairdresser, and we literally put my son in his little high chair, which he's way too big for now. He's almost 5. Yeah. And he is screaming bloody murder. We put him on the back deck like a month ago. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, if neighbors want to call CPS, it makes so much sense at this point. So anyway, keep me posted when it's time for
it's haircuts. Already been time for haircut.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we started at like 4 months. We gave him his first haircut. And he's pretty good with it, but last time we gave him a haircut was a little bit challenging, because he just got a little bit fussy quicker than I expected. So what we did is we put him in his little bumpo on the counter. We turned on Miss Rachel, faced him towards Miss Rachel, gave him a little fudgesicle, one of those healthy ones.
Oh yeah, the one that you have to.
Exactly. And then he was good the whole duration of the haircut. So I mean, maybe start there, put on a nice program, give them a snack that they love. And now they're on cloud 9, right? Like 2 positive things, and now all they have to do is just sit still, get a haircut, and you're going to praise them afterwards.
It's incredible.
Yeah, so just kind of set them up for success.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I would say too, let us know in the comments if there's anything else, if you're a new parent that you feel like is a challenge that Dr. Zach and myself are going to have to experience. We'd love to hear back from you guys on that. So we have this part of the podcast called Fails of the Week. Okay. It's very important. We just talked about some of the difficulties, obviously, but I just think it's really important for entrepreneurs, business owners, people that are in everyday life to realize that they can consume social media all day long. They can see great videos on your Instagram of you talking about your successes and your wins. Yeah. But what would you say is maybe that fail of the week, or even just thinking about your practice's history? Yeah. What's one of those stories or one of those moments where you're like, I really failed here? Yeah. And again, whether that's this week or over the past couple of years.
Well, I think I'm, to put a positive spin on it, I think I am trying to look at them more as like learning moments instead of failures, right? I guess more immediately, a fail of the week, breaking into this whole, putting myself in front of the camera. And I mean, you and I were talking about certain strategies and what we can do with video content. And I'm really trying to jump into that. But it's uncomfortable for me. It really is. Not a huge fan of it. Definitely, heightens my anxiety, but I feel like the more that I do it, the better. Well, you and I got off a conversation on the phone where, I had all of this, mojo from the conversation. And I was like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start, recording some content. I kid you not, man. I sat there for like 5 hours. my wife, she was out of town this weekend, so I was kind of like, in bachelor mode. I was like, not really in bachelor mode. I just had a lot of free time.
Yeah.
So I was super stoked. But the time always flies by. But regardless, my wife was out of town, and she had left the first place that she was visiting her sister in Pennsylvania. And she was like, I'm leaving here. And I was like, I got 5 hours until she's got to be home.
Yeah.
So I'm good. So I was going to record all this content. She made it to Binghamton. She told me that she was going to hang out there for a couple of hours. Man, by the time she had barely gotten home, I wasn't happy with any of I'd sat there for 5 hours. So I felt like I was failing at this. I was just overthinking things. And I walked out of that situation just feeling like I wasted a whole bunch of time. But then, I was thinking about things later on, and I was just like, well, why were you overanalyzing the situation? And, I was just trying to kind of piece together, why I wasn't successful in that moment. And I, worked it out in my head, and I, try to look at things and shift my perspective and just tell myself, well, I'll try again next time, but don't get discouraged by it, because I learned, some things about, the angle, and, you've taught me a bunch of cool things that I can do on my own with, like, the technology that we have. So that was a fail of the week. Just wasting time on doing content that I don't feel like I made any progress with.
Well, just to interject, I think there's a lot of people listening that maybe they have a story to tell. They have content to share, whatever, but maybe they're an introvert, or maybe they're I don't know anything about cameras or microphones, or I don't have a podcast space to be able to record this kind of stuff. And one of the primary things that I always say to clients is, you have to just press record.
Yeah.
You have to just get your voice out there, and just it's all about at bats. You can't hit a home run if you don't swing the bat, right? So I think the idea is, how can you, and maybe you want to encourage someone that's listening, but how can you overcome that? So you mentioned you don't like doing it.
Yeah.
And then you hit a road bump of a 5 hour wasted recording time.
Yeah.
How have you been able to still step up to the plate, even to come to a podcast like today?
Yeah.
You probably weren't like, yes. You probably woke up this morning and were like, okay, here we go.
I was feeling the exact opposite of, I'm so excited, because of how, my weekend went, just feeling like I had wasted time. But it's kind of what you said. I didn't become, an amazing pediatric dentist overnight.
Right.
I've literally, I can look back or think back at all of those years that I just felt like I was having imposter syndrome. I was just trying to fake it until I make it. And I saw like those glimmers of hope where I'm like, oh, I am good enough. It's kind of like when you get that birdie or that par on the last hole of a golf round, where you're like, oh, I do actually love this sport, and I just put it together for one hole, so I have hope, right? So I guess I lean into those things where I'm like, well, I didn't feel confident in my ability as a pediatric dentist, especially starting a practice.
Right.
There were so many times where I felt like I was failing, or I did the wrong thing. And kind of looking back, it was, again, those experiences, which I now don't consider failures, but I consider learning moments, and I have to go through them in order to get better and to be better. So, in this situation where it's like, all right, I just need more at-bats, right? So I had 5 hours of at-bats by myself, and I learned a lot, because I didn't have to be worried about, there being, a time crunch to anything or anyone watching me. So I got to, take it all in. And now putting myself in this situation where I'm like, hey, Mike, like, I'll come in and do a podcast with you. As uncomfortable as it might be, it's like, it's just another at-bat. And I know that I can, knock it out of the park sometimes.
Yeah, dude. And one of the things that's just so important for you and anybody listening is, people don't know how you can help them unless you tell them. Period. So I think we live in this time where social media is a great place to tell them. It's not the only place, but if you're quiet and you're wondering why your practice isn't growing, or you're wondering why things aren't improving in your life, well, maybe it's because you haven't told people that you have a solution to some of their problems.
Yeah, exactly.
And so again, I think content's a great way to do that. But again, for those listening, and even just within your own story, I think there's a lot of people, man, that it's not imposter syndrome. It's not that they are scared of the other people that's out, that are out there that are putting out content that's similar. I think more people get stuck in that analysis paralysis when they actually feel like, does my voice even matter? Do I even need to do this? Or even more important, they start thinking, well, what's like my aunt gonna think when she's been following me for my photos of my kids, and now I'm like this professional, but we can see right past that. We know who you really are. Well, okay, rewind, right? People engage with things that are human.
Yeah.
So as you show up human, as you show up in the absolute truest form that you are, a pediatric dentist, I think it just elevates that professionalism for you.
Yeah.
Again, looking at your practice, I've obviously intimately aware of it, having a chance to watch my son walk in and out. And from the moment that you walk in to, having Disney Plus up on the screens, to having, some nice music playing, all the colors, everything, you put a lot of thought in that space.
Yeah.
Maybe share a little bit about, you guys probably don't have a background in building out spaces and things like that. So talk about, how did some of those decisions come about when you guys really were trying to craft that space that would be welcoming for kids?
Well, I think we were very lucky in that when we started A Dentist for Kids, we were working inside of another dental office, just subletting out a space. And prior to even that, I was an associate for 2 years. So I got to be in my thoughts a lot, where I was trying to think, what are the necessities and what are the things that I would have at my dream practice? Now, I haven't created a Taj Mahal or anything like that, but I tried to do it with a lot of just putting a lot of, forethought into things, because I want to make sure that, I do, create an experience for any patient that walks in my office. And ultimately, I think Ashley and we realized that, when it comes to building a practice, you can have an ice cream machine at your practice. You can have a basketball court at your practice. But it comes down to how are the people treating people. And so building a team was like so crucial. And then everything else just kind of, fell into place with the design, just kind of taking input here and there and wanting to, do something that was good for all ages. That, where the older kids didn't necessarily age out of the practice too fast, wanting the parents to just feel comfortable in the environment. Obviously having things like Disney Plus, where it just serves as like a good distraction. As soon as you walk through the door, it's like, sometimes you walk into an office and you're like, I'm here. And like the waiting can be so daunting. But if you walk into an office and you're immediately distracted by, a movie on the wall, and it's like the brand new movie out on Disney Plus and you've been dying, but you haven't had the opportunity to watch it yet. It just immediately, distracts you from the situation. And then you're listening to uplifting, worship music in the background, and you're being greeted by, all of these people that genuinely are awesome at connecting with kids. And it just, the whole package was so important to me. Yeah. So it was just paying attention to the little details, and it didn't happen overnight. And I think, that's kind of the theme, the underlying theme, is that none of this happens overnight. Whether it's me getting better at video content or me building and designing a practice, it all is just building, upon the next thing. And I think sometimes you just have to get comfortable in the process, because when you're trying to always achieve that next thing and trying to run run faster than you can or than you're ready for, I think that's when the mistakes happen. And sometimes it takes more work to have to like go back and redo versus just kind of like pumping your brakes and assessing things along the way. Yeah. And then, because my practice didn't look like what it looks like now on day one when we opened our doors at our new place. Like, we added things just based off of me spending maybe an hour after work, just kind of sitting in each room, and what are they seeing? And, how can I just give another pop of color that, draws their attention? Or, how do I make a personal touch, like putting, pictures of my dogs on the, that wasn't stuff that I had thought of beforehand. It was just being thoughtful during the process and wanting to give the best product that I can. And, hopefully we've achieved that.
Yeah. again, as you're talking, I'm thinking about the amount of people that haven't started something because they don't have it all perfect just yet. There's so many stories like that where you can go 10, 15, 20 years down your life and you never actually start and start to improve on what you started because you're so concerned with it being perfect. And I even think about this podcast. I recorded the intro to the podcast over a year ago.
Wow.
Had it going, had the logo, had the design, had everything going. We're building a podcast space across the hall of this building. And this is a rental space that we're using right now. And thank God for my brother-in-law, Justin Ocello, who goes, hey, we can get started. You know, we can start this thing. And again, in the same boat, man, just kind of this being stuck. And I don't know if I can start this just yet. But am I scared of what people are going to think? Do I have a message? Do I have people that I want to bring on and interview them? Of course, right? So why not start now? You mentioned, which I love this about you, and obviously we share this, you mentioned playing worship music as kind of a part of some of that peaceful environment, welcoming atmosphere. Your faith is really important to you, as it is to me. Talk a little bit about, I think there's a lot of, people that are certainly faith-based, but they don't want to come off too pushy. Maybe they're a business owner, or maybe they just work at a normal job where they, have peers that are around them that they don't want to be evangelizing 24/7 and, preaching Jesus to everybody. But how have you been able to navigate almost a respectful evangelism, so to speak, but just a way to, again, share the gospel, but in a way that doesn't feel overbearing to people?
Yeah, I think when I was working as an associate at my first practice, they just played regular radio music. And I remember having more thoughts of, oh no, like the kid can't hear this, right? Like, why are we playing this? Like, because a lot of the music was just about, alcohol and partying and all of these things that kids really shouldn't be listening to. So I just remember thinking, like, the radio is really not like a safe thing for us to have on. And if it wasn't songs being played, it was just, boring advertisements or, whatever it was. So I started listening to, when we started our practice inside of that other dental office, that's when I started to just kind of put worship music on in the background. And it wasn't ever to evangelize or be an evangelist. It was just because I was constantly feeling like stress, under stress, and I know that like the world can pull you in so many different directions, and my eyes had really been opened up to that, and I didn't want to be pulled into the direction of just becoming this prideful doctor that was driven by money and driven by my accolades and what people thought of me. So I needed to humble myself as like the progress was being made. And a lot of that was just keeping myself in check by listening to music that really brought me to my knees, right? All throughout my day, I tell myself, like, this is going to be a hard thing for me to get through. Like, I work on difficult, challenging kids, helicopter parents in the background. All throughout the day, I tell myself that, like, this is going to be hard. But as someone that does have a lot of faith, and I tap into it as often as I can, I never count myself out of those situations, because I've seen him show up in situations where I'm like, I'm not going to even be able to get out of this situation, but I'm leaning into you right now, because then I know I'm capable of it. So the music kind of started off as a me thing, right? And I felt like if I hear a bunch of negative feedback, then I might have to reevaluate. But so far in 5 years, one person, he was 16 years old, and he asked me, why do I play Christian music? And that was pretty much, it just kind of came off as like a hard question. But everyone else has just always said how much they appreciate it, because even though it is Christian music that I'm playing, I'm respectful of people that, have, come from all different walks of beliefs or faith or religion. And I think the bigger message is just kind of believing in something greater, a God that, can move mountains in your life. And, we might call him different things, but I think just being in tune to that, he can when our hearts are open to it, that's when, those changes can be made. And my heart is certainly open to it, and to be able to kind of get people to slow down, because when parents walk through my doors, I mean, they got a million things going on, right? There's so much going on in their life, and they're just so happy that they made it to the appointment on time. Their kids might be wearing 2 different color socks and shoes, and they just might be a little bit disheveled. But I want, when they come into my office, for them to feel like, breathe, be still. Like, this is like a typical scary environment, but we're going to flip the script on this, and we're going to make this soothing for everybody, not just the patient in my chair, but just doing it in a subtle way, right? Because I think that that's where growth really can happen, but the good kind of growth, not the growth that makes you too prideful or, build your ego up too much. It's the growth that keeps you humble and that keeps you appreciative of the success and the relationships that you foster with people. Like, that's the real deal stuff. So, I mean, I've never had anyone complain about the worship music, and for me, it's been so helpful. And I've seen, I've seen a change in people's attitudes, coming into the office and then leaving the office. So we're just going to continue to roll with it, because any way that I can be a reflector of his light, I want them to meet, him through my actions and my words. And I think running a practice, running any business, you need to have that baseline level of trust. And I'm not trying to exploit God by saying, oh, well, if I believe in God, then you can trust everything that I'm saying. But by my words and by my actions, and I'll prove it to you. I get at least two interactions with you every year, because your kid's being, brought in once every 6 months. Over time, I don't need it to happen, but I want to get off on a good start. I want you to feel like that red carpet's been rolled out to you. I want you to feel like we are doing everything to serve you, and to treat your kids with kindness and respect. And
it's awesome, man.
So, that's kind of how it all came to be.
There's a Bible verse that says people will know God by the way that we love one another. And for those that don't know, I was a pastor for about 6 years. Used to do summer camps and youth development and all that great stuff. It was some of the best years of my life. I went to Palmer Theological Seminary down in Philly. I got my master's degree in theology. And one of the final papers that I wrote was really talking about this concept of, I can't empathize fully with those guys on the side that are, turn or burn, and, it's now or never. You drive up to a Bills game and there's always this billboard that says, heaven or hell, you decide. And it's like, wow, this is intense, right? My whole paper was basically written on, what if the job of a Christian is not one of reprimanding or telling someone about God, but there's a Bible verse that says that God has hand knit everyone in their mother's womb. So what that tells me is that the fingerprint of God is on every single person.
Absolutely.
So what if it's not my job to tell them, yell at them, fix them? What if my job is to just extract the God that is already in them?
Exactly.
And so for me, that has changed the way that I do business, changed the way that I do live this life. Is I don't have to fix anybody. I can't. I don't have the power to do it, and nor do I feel like I need to fix everybody. But I can love them. I can serve them well. And in doing so, you start to see God reveal himself in situations, conversations, and in people.
Oh, absolutely.
Which is really beautiful.
Yeah, I think that when you can tap into that, not only do you see that he has a plan for you and that he does see divine potential in you, right? Like, he sees something greater in all of us, but I think let's pay it forward and help other people see that potential in themselves, right? Like, because it's not, we don't grow when we are always doing things where we're looking inward. It's when we start looking outward, and how do we use these talents that we've been given in the most humble way in order to lift everybody up.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I think if that's your purpose, then
we should have a whole nother podcast on that, because I think we could talk about that forever. But
for sure,
I really appreciate you being on, man. This has been awesome. We have one final segment. This is my favorite segment. This is, you're in the hot seat. This is rapid fire questions. Okay, right. This is about some of what we've talked about, some of your industry specific questions, all sorts of things. Rapid fire. All right. 1 to 2 sentences. Some of them one word responses. Are you ready for this?
I don't think I can give. No, I'm going to try my best.
You're like, I'm going to try. Okay. Rapid fire hot seat. Here we go. Question 1. Favorite healthy snack for kids?
Fruits and veggies all day.
Fruits and veggies all day. Toothbrush color or brand or style that you recommend for kids?
Whatever one they like.
That's great. Best cartoon character that makes kids smile?
Bluey is super influential.
Bluey's number 1. What's your favorite dental joke? You've got to have one.
Man, there's so many corny ones out there. I think the one I always like the best is when's the best time to go to the dentist if you're having dental pain or if you're having tooth pain? You're supposed to say,
I don't know the answer.
Tooth hurty.
Oh.
Tooth hurty.
Okay.
Tooth hurty.
Okay. Tooth. Okay.
Tooth hurty.
Yeah, that was corny, but that's okay. I'm happy that you shared
joke,
it.
a little bit corny.
That's fine. What's the must-have song on your office playlist? Like it's got to play every day. You need the song.
Oh, as soon as I get into the office, I play Forrest Frank. Usually, Good Day or Up. I mean, he's just on fire right now.
Let's go.
Yeah, he pumps me up for sure.
I love it. What's the best age to bring a kid to the dentist, to your practice or to a practice that's for kids?
Yeah, so typically 1 years old is when the American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry recommends. So yeah, reach out as soon as you start having questions and you start seeing teeth erupting through.
Go-to tip for making kids comfortable at the dentist?
Just get down at their level, right? I mean, as far as if I'm talking to my colleagues, get down at their level because that's how you're going to make these kids feel comfortable. Voice control and just understand that they don't all check the same boxes. So you have to be able to think on the fly. But yeah, if you get down at their level and make them feel like they're talking to you and you're not talking at them, then you're golden.
Boom.
Yeah.
Zach Mills, thank you for being on, my friend.
Yeah.
Greatly appreciate you. I want to say this to you, and obviously the camera will catch it. You should be incredibly proud of what you are building, what you have built, the family, your faith, your practice. You are an incredible person, and I'm honored to call you friend.
Appreciate that.
Thanks for being on. And thank you guys for tuning in to the In Good Company podcast, where we believe that the best parts in business happen when you're in good company. Take care.
Take care.